Today we are going to be talking about the things that sales reps wish you knew about closing deals. And we've got a couple of kind of expert panelists here who, I don't know, I guess I didn't ask you this, Brooke or Diane, in advance, but I'm just going to go out and say that it's like, they're BFFs between sales and RevOps, right? They have a great relationship. I think when I posted about this on LinkedIn, it was like, they're not frenemies. They're not backstabbers. They're sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya. They love each other and they've got it down pat. So we're going to hear what their best practices and things are on kind of closing deals and really how sales and kind of go-to-market ops, RevOps can best partner together around things like policies and procedures. But before we kind of dive into to all of that, I want to talk a little bit about the agenda and then do some introductions of our panelists. And actually, I'm going to go in reverse order. So first, let me start with some quick introductions. So you all probably know me already. Matt, CEO and founder of RevOps Co-op. RevOps Co-op, we've got a global community of 12,000 plus RevOps folks from all over the globe. A series of different programs that we run. We've got a Slack group, digital events, in-person events. We're hosting our first kind of conference, RevOps AF, in May in San Diego. So if you haven't taken a look at that, please do, revopsaf.com. 300 of us are all going to get together and hang out for some learning and networking in sunny San Diego. But in addition to kind of myself, I've got Diane and Brooke here as well. Both from the Ironclad team. Brooke is a director of mid-market sales. Diane is the VP of go-to-market operations. And I guess, Brooke, I'm going to start with you. One, anything you want to add to that, call it professional introduction. And then two, I always like to ask folks for one, like non-work related, non-professional related, like fun, interesting personal fact that you can share with the audience outside of all the amazing sales things that you do.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll give a little bit more context on my role just in case helpful for the group. So, as mentioned, I lead our mid-market sales team. So, for us at Ironclad, we really segment based on employee count for our customers. So, my team is responsible for both new business and current customer sales within customers 1 to 1,000 employees. I'm a second line leader over 3 frontline leaders within our organization. And I've been with Ironclad for nearly 5 years. So through many evolutions and worked on a lot of different deals of a lot of different types. So lots of opinions and really happy to be here today. Was able to do a webinar with RevOps Co-op last year that was really fun. So I was excited to come back and see everybody. I have like the least fun facts in my personal life,
I
unfortunately.
doubt it.
Every time I get this question, I realize I need to really work on my repertoire outside of work. But for me, like I know people have different things they're super passionate about or what your big ticket items are that you save up for. For me, that's experiences with food and wine. So I'm trying to go to as many Michelin star restaurants as I possibly can. I love trying wine pairings, things like that. My most recent favorite meal I've had is at Seven Adams in San Francisco for anybody in the Bay Area. Really amazing new restaurant that I think will get a Michelin star soon. That has now become one of my favorites. So that would be my recommendation. But yeah, I save up to go have ridiculously fancy meals. It's like my favorite thing in the world.
That's awesome. And then you catch on to the great restaurants before they're getting their Michelin stars as well. So if anyone wants those pre-Michelin sort of restaurants where you can be like, hey, I was there before they got before they got fancy, before they got well known, just go to Brooke, in addition to kind of all of the sales knowledge that she has as well. And I would say, Brooke, also that is a very fun, interesting fact. I've had some other people say similar things about. We had one panelist who's super into ramen, and every year he would go to Japan to basically just like sample as many different ramen restaurants as he could. And then another person who was like a micro brewery beer connoisseur, who kept a little notebook with all of his like tasty notes on things. So you give yourself more credit. I guess that's the main thing I'm trying to say there. And then in addition, I've got Diane, the VP of Go-to-Market Operations over at Ironclad. So Diane, anything you want to add to the professional introduction for the crew? And then, what how are you going to one up Brooke on her interesting personal fact?
I don't know about one-upping, but I wouldn't say it's a fun fact, but Brooke and I are not in competition with one another. We like to think about how we balance one another. So we'll tease that here, but we'll dive into that a little bit more in the content. But my background, basically, I've always been in operations, have always worked in some form of tech. So we'll age myself a little bit, nearly 20 years of experience across different forms of operations. My original background actually was to be a band director. So the linkage there is I really love to bring people together and bring alignment. So within music, that's like being in an orchestra or in a band. So translate that skill here for operations. But here at Ironclad, I've been here for nearly 2 years. And RevOps and go-to-market ops are defined very differently across different organizations. But for us, we define it as the centralization of marketing ops, sales ops, CS ops, systems, and we actually split out renewals ops a little bit separately. So that instead of rolling that through CS, that reports directly to me. So that's everything that sits under my purview. My fun fact is that I got my pandemic puppy a dog because I'm crazy. And he needed a
Nice.
friend.
Now you
So
got two.
now I have two. I'm maxed out at two. They're both right around like 13, 14 pounds. So they're just big enough to sort of be taken seriously, but not really.
Hmm.
But yeah, they're a
Yeah,
blast.
that's awesome. I love the band director question because I think everybody on this digital event can, like, if we envision what we do within RevOps and go-to-market ops, if we all close our eyes for a second and just think, you can see us like just as a band director, right? Like over here we're like, with like our sales team, and then over here it's like CS, and then over here it's like marketing, right? Systems, and we're just like strumming away, just like guiding everyone. If it was only that easy, or at least if it only appeared to be. I mean, it looks super graceful when I see people do it. I have no idea how to do it myself. Reality is super hard, but I also think that translates well into our conversation today. So to dive into kind of the topic, these are kind of the different areas that we want to hit on and cover. So we're gonna get started on talking about kind of policies and procedures around sales specifically. Obviously, Diane, you mentioned within go-to-market ops, you have a whole lot kind of under your purview, but we're focused here on kind of sales, the relationship with the sales team and sales policies and procedures. So first talk about, hey, why do these things even exist? Why might some sales reps call it go rogue or not follow policies or guidelines? From there, we'll get into how you can actually create some policies that sellers can get behind and actually follow. And then after that, we'll hit on how to take an iterative approach and really best partner between sales and go-to-market ops or rev ops in order to do what we all want to do, which is close more deals, keep more customers. So first, talk about why we even create policies in the first place. And Diane, maybe I'll start with you on this as the kind of the go-to-market ops person. I guess, what are your thoughts on this? Why do we even create these things? Why do these things even exist in the first place?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to take a step back and say, why are we trying to accomplish something? Putting myself in my customer's shoes, and in that instance, my customer could be the sales team, the customer could be the actual customer. And I really try to keep both in mind as I think about this. But why do we need a policy? And it actually has to start with what strategy are we trying to reinforce with the organization? So we're not creating policy for the sake of policy. We don't want to be, I like to use this analogy a lot. We're not trying to be the IRS of sales policy or discount policy or whatever policy you're thinking about. You think about the IRS, and I'm sure everyone had a visceral reaction. Ugh, all of the rules and the gotchas and the loopholes, and now I have to go hire somebody to help me with my taxes. No, we want to keep things simple. We want to reinforce the things that we want to execute on as a go-to-market organization. And to do that, you have to think about how you're aligning your people, your processes, and ultimately your data. Because if we're instrumenting these processes and we're thinking about how people go through this, then we can gather the right data points and ideally automate them so that we're gaining the right insights and again, driving those business outcomes. So if we're thinking about the outcomes that we want, the strategy that we have in place, that kind of answers a lot of the policy for you. It actually probably defines about 80 to 90% of that policy. And then you can start thinking about, okay, now where do we want to have a little bit of carrot versus a little bit of stick, right? But thinking about that, these questions will actually tend to answer themselves. But we can't do this by ourselves in the operational space. I really was not joking. It has to be a partnership with sales. So I actually would love to hear from Brooke. Like, what are you thinking about when sales reps might go rogue, or even what is rogue?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I work with customers every day. I work very closely with revenue operations teams, legal teams who sometimes feel very alienated from reps. And it's easy to think reps are running around making crazy decisions, putting the business at risk just because they want to. But the reality is, salespeople have some of the hardest jobs in an organization, and they really do have good intentions, but I think they get very, very overwhelmed. So a few things I see as reasons why reps step outside of policies. The first is manual processes slow us down. And I think that's why it's so important to build that relationship between operations and sales leadership, is to sort of rebrand operations within your organization. So it's not this tower of no, it really is a team that's looking to drive business outcomes. So I love that Diane highlights that specifically. And right now, there are macroeconomic conditions where a customer can have budget today and lose it tomorrow. So reps feel a lot of timeline stress to get a deal out as quickly as possible. And going through manual steps can sometimes feel like the difference between a deal getting done or not. What we can argue whether or not that's true. And with that, it can be really hard to find the information you need. And we can go into some best practices here later and what we've rolled out at Ironclad, but sometimes decisions are made without the enablement piece to make sure people know how to follow the policy. And a policy being documented isn't enough because some of these policies end up being really complex, or maybe our systems don't even reinforce it and we need to be accountable for it ourselves. And the third, and I think this is the most important one and something I'm super passionate about, is they don't understand the why. I can't discount past a certain amount, or I can't provide a price lock in perpetuity. Why can't I do that? What's the impact to the business? What's the impact to me as a shareholder in the business if we do step out of policy? And so I think the more we can bring people along on the business justification for any decisions, the more we can empower them to make the right choices as they go out and represent the business for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, speed is critical when and I think it always has been, right? But especially like you mentioned today, Brooke, anything that starts to slow people down. And I think to me that's kind of connected with the last thing you mentioned on like not understanding the why, is like, okay, if I'm trying to close a deal and I have this stuff in front of me that's like slowing me down and I don't know why it's there or why it's helpful or why it's valuable, then like I'm just gonna skip it, right? Like that, like, I'll again, and I mean, honestly, like most of the time, like I kind of have the thought of like, I'd rather have you like ask for forgiveness than permission, typically too. But I think, it's like the stuff that Diane, you mentioned, up here in terms of like, well, why do we create policies in the first place? I think, the main thing that I took away from this was like policies are never called like, or these rules are never like the starting point that you have, right? You're talking about, hey, like these exist because they reinforce a strategy that we have. They align the people and the process that we already have. They drive us towards the business outcomes that we have all agreed that we want to drive towards, right? And so you need these things, right? You need a strategy, you need people and process, you need an idea on the business outcomes you want to drive before you can ultimately get to a place where you can create policies and rules and operating procedures, right? And like you said, the reason why you do that is because you know the stuff that works and that'll produce the business results that you want to do. But we're humans, right? We make mistakes along the way and we run into a lot of scenarios like this that we already kind of talked about. And so understanding, I guess, a little bit on like okay, why do we need rules, guidelines, policies, procedures? Why do maybe sales reps kind of go rogue every now and then? So let's get into how we can actually create playbooks that sellers can get behind. And I think this is where, again, the kind of the relationship between go-to-market ops and kind of the sales team at Ironclad will be super helpful. So, we got our tip number 1 up here about building strong relationships with sales leaders. So Diane, I guess let's get started with you on this and talk about, kind of what's behind this recommendation.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to put this out there. Operations should never be in a position where we're just order takers. Nor should we be, Brooke, I loved your phrase, a tower of no. The balancing act there is that we are business partners. And so that healthy tension between sales and operations should and could and should exist, right? There should be moments where we both say, ooh, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum here. How do we navigate this, right? But all of this starts with building a relationship. So I can talk about the tactical, use this framework, think about this thing. But at the end of the day, you're a human being trying to engage with another human being. How do you build trust? How do you build empathy? How do you build that alignment? So it starts with coming up with a plan. What is it that you're trying to do? Go on a roadshow, building that empathy, have that open discussion, be vulnerable, be transparent about the things that are holding you back or things that you're concerned about, and then get into the whys and the what's in it for me. As you put your salesperson hat on, you put yourself in their shoes, think about how they're going to receive this. But I've just said a lot about looking at this from an ops perspective. I actually would love to hear, Brooke, what are you looking for when you're trying to engage with your ops partner?
Yeah, and I've worked with so many different operations partners over the years. I'm super lucky because your team is amazing. I think about all the ops people I've been working with to ship territories and new pricing and all of these things. And for me, the ops people that I love to work with the most demonstrate a lot of curiosity. And salespeople are very consumed by their own experience in their own world. So I think something to keep in mind is we call them segment leaders or business unit leaders within the organization, think their team has the hardest job. They think their team has the most unique needs. So myself as our mid-market leader compared to our enterprise leader, both of our jobs, super important. The things we need, the things we struggle with, entirely different. And so by not painting with a wide paintbrush, but coming to each individual and asking about the business and not just saying what we're going to do, but coming to me and say, what does your team struggle with? What are you noticing? Where are you experiencing slowdowns? What are you driving for this year? What are your goals? That helps me feel like someone is in the boat with me and we're rowing together. So I think the number one thing you can do is get really curious and really try to understand what leaders are thinking about. And I think it goes to the empathy and alignment piece really perfectly.
Work as
Yeah.
as you describe that, I sorry, Matt, I'm like thinking of other questions as
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
comes up. Let's work as we're rolling something out. Let's say it's new discounting policy. How do you like for ops to then re-engage? Because it's not a one and done. To me, this kind of goes back to what is this roadshow and what is this building empathy and alignment? How do you like to re-engage with your ops partners to make sure that you're still in alignment?
Yeah, so for me, the way I've really done that is by having a little bit more structured of an engagement with my ops partners. I think that's the other important thing to think about is not making it a one and done, but also you need to get back on your sales leaders' calendars because those calendars fill up. So I have standing meetings with a lot of my ops partners where we check in and both come to the table and have an agenda of here's what we rolled out. How is it going? What feedback are you hearing? And so by having ongoing touch points that are sort of forced upon us that we really respect and know that this time is really important allows us not to let it slip by. And when I see that on my calendar for Tuesday, Monday, I go check in with my frontline and make sure I'm prepared with the feedback to have that conversation. So I really recommend implementing structure because it's really easy to move on to the next thing, especially in a fast-paced startup environment.
Yep, 100%. Now I'm wondering like whether that was puppy number 1 or puppy number 2 that we heard.
That is
Yeah.
puppy number 2. Sorry.
Nice.
It is
No worries.
challenge
You
of
might
work from
hear
home.
Yeah, you might hear mine. You might hear mine eventually at some point. Depends on how many Amazon packages we get delivered during this event. So yeah, so I think I guess a couple of things that jumped out at me as y'all were talking. I think one, uh, and Diane, you mentioned this, and I think to have, with a lot of us working in technology or like with our jobs being heavily based in technology, we can kind of forget the fact that business and stuff is still done between human beings, right? It's human to human. And so at the end of the day, like building those connections with other people internally across the teams that you're supporting is really, really important. And that'll be a giant first step that anyone can take to improve their partnership with, again, whether it's sales, marketing, like wherever you may be kind of struggling. I think the other thing that jumped out at me is like approach these in terms of how you can drive towards making the best decision for the business as a whole and creating those business outcomes that you want. So like Brooke, you mentioned, right? You're obviously leading the mid-market team. You obviously want what's best for Ironclad as a whole, right? But for you, like your world is mid-market, right? And so those are the things that are going to be dramatically important and drastically important. You go to the enterprise leader, they're going to think the enterprise stuff is like the things that are most important, right? So, for someone like Diane who spans go-to-market operations is like, as you're working with these various leaders within your company, like call it if you have your own challenges or your own thought process, right? Instead of saying just things like no, be like, well, here's where I struggle with that. I've got XYZ over here on the enterprise team that they need, or ABC that we're focused on with like customer success and renewals, right? And so like I'm trying to balance the trade-offs between all of these things. And like honestly, sometimes be like, what would you do? Like hey Brooke, what would you do? Like I was talking to a marketing person the other day about this. They're like, yeah, my CEO brought me these things that he was trying to accomplish with the business. And he just asked me like, well, what would you do? And no one's ever asked me that before. Like that's a great way to bring that person in, right? And make them feel like they're included in the decision making. So yeah, those are all super, super important things that you all hit on. And so you mentioned kind of I think the process and the structure a little bit. And so, maybe hit on this. I don't know, Diane or Brooke, who wants to kind of talk about this, but this particular kind of rollout kind of schedule and how you all leverage
Yeah,
this.
so I created just a little sample of how we could think through rolling out new discount approvals, right? And again, it comes back to listening to your stakeholders. Operations sits in a really interesting spot in the organization. Think of it as like a hub and spoke. If operations is in the middle, all these different spokes are different groups that we need to speak with. So you'll notice that one place that we start with is finance, but that's not the end all be all. We also then have to work with sales leadership to think about what are we trying to accomplish with updates to a discount matrix. Well, a discount matrix, taking a step back, the why behind the policy is we're trying to do our best to protect margins on behalf of the business. We are in the business of making money. Margin is how much money we make, to overly simplify this, on every single deal. So, but to Brooke's point, there are different scenarios, different sorts of things that we need to think through where it comes to unique customer needs, unique segment needs. So we have to create a way to take in that feedback and then go through the process of making those updates. Make sure people feel heard, even if the answer ultimately is we couldn't take that into consideration this time, right? Bring people along that journey so that they feel at least that their voice was acknowledged and that their point of view was taken into consideration. Now, I think the biggest trick for operators is to come back and say, not we had to make this decision, so the answer is just no. Actually explain it. We had to take these things into consideration. We had to think about these priorities. The business has dictated XYZ, and so this is how it's going to show up in this particular policy. Make sure that we be a little bit transparent about that. Biggest leadership lesson I've ever learned. Don't just say, oh, well, so-and-so said so, therefore I can't do it. That's honestly, if that's where you're leading, you may have to go back and reevaluate. Do you even understand the initiative that you're trying to drive? Because if you don't, go interrogate that. But I say all this to just really say there are many steps to rolling something out. at the root of all of this, communication. It's all about comms. It's all about making sure people understand what's happening and that you're thinking about the different layers of the organization and how they need to consume this, and then in turn be empowered to reinforce this. But I actually want to hear a little bit from Brooke. I feel like I could nerd out on this for days. So I will pause here.
+1 to everything you said. And I think this is where the united front and relationship across ops and sales leadership can really show up. So you'll see in the way that we roll things out, we talk at the sales leadership level, we make sure the business unit leaders are aligned and that we agree. And sometimes it is a disagree and commit, but we sort of get that opportunity to have a discussion. Then we get the front line enabled and focusing really on the why. So maybe you have a max discount. Maybe it's a pricing minimum. Maybe it's a different way you can assign implementation services, whatever it might be from a pricing perspective, making sure everyone from the front line up knows the business justification for this rule. That way, when we get to the AE training, like the best thing you can have is when ops, finance, whoever is rolling out a policy, sales leaders are chiming in. I know we've done a good job when in the chat, reps ask questions and the sales leaders are the ones actually answering them, because at the end of the day, that's who the reps are truly going to listen to and who can speak to them in a language that they'll understand. So I think the biggest takeaway or tip I would give when it comes to rolling out any policy is getting the buy-in and making sure they understand the why, and then really leveraging that relationship to have them chime in from a sales leader perspective to help you enforce the policy.
Yeah. And one of the, I guess, question for maybe Diane, for you, as I see like on this, you've got AE training, right, as kind of one of the last things on here, and there's some stuff that happens in advance of that. So, part of I guess part of me is thinking like, oh, when you hold these trainings, and we talked about how enablement and making sure people understand kind of the why, right, is so important. Part of me is like, oh, we'll try to, again, people's time is valuable, right? So how can we host like one big training for as many people as we possibly can, right? Make this like a one and done. But then I also hear things like, oh, we're going to do AE training separate from trainer to trainer training, maybe look at talking to different segments at different times. So how or why are you thinking about enablement that way? And then I also see you have like kind of some office hours, right? Some recurring stuff that kind of happens after that. So yeah, just like, how do you think about the enablement side of this, and the couple that with the communications that we've been talking about now in terms of how you structure those things?
So I will reinforce something that Brooke said. It's incredibly impactful when it's that frontline manager who's able to answer a lot of those questions. At the end of the day, being really, really frank, AEs don't care so much about operations. They care about who they report to. And if you think back to why does somebody quit an organization, or why do they leave or join an organization, we can get all the things right, but at the end of the day, it's your hiring manager. It's who you report to on a day-to-day basis. They make or break it for you. So understanding that relationship, and also understanding the volume or the level of impact of change that we're trying to roll out, really dictates how many channels we want to consider when we start rolling something out. So there's a train the trainer aspect. We have to think about scale. Operations cannot be the only group that takes all the questions, because we become a bottleneck. But also, it's the AE manager who's in the trenches every single day with that AE. They're thinking about deals. They're doing forecast calls. They're doing deal inspections. They're trying to coach people to get to the right place at the right time with that deal. So why should we insert ourselves into that process? Why can't we empower people? But we also know, Matt, you mentioned before, we're all humans. We make mistakes, or we may leave something out. We may not think about something. So how do we also create space so that people can come back and say, hey, we didn't cover this particular scenario, or I had a really specific question that I would love to get some extra guidance on. So I think about, where can we meet our stakeholders where they're at? How can we craft the content, the material, and the timing of this so that they can consume it in the best way possible? But let's say we couldn't get to everything. Office hours kind of serve as that way. I don't want to call it a catch-all, but it's an opportunity for people to step in and say, I had something that was kind of unique for me. I want to raise my hand for this. Let's take advantage of that. So I really think about meeting folks where they are and different avenues to help people learn. People learn in different ways.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, make sure you got buy-in from the right stakeholders, the right folks in advance of obviously holding, kind of certain training sessions, right, as you move down the line. And then, yeah, understand that nothing is going to be perfect or 100% accurate. And you've got to give yourself an opportunity to hear from the people who are out there, call it following these policies, these procedures, right? So that you can get that feedback and adjust things, right? Because at the end of the day, none of these things are going to be set in stone or permanent. And again, if you're trying to produce the best outcomes for the business, then you're certainly going to want to iterate on these things as you go. So I know one of the things we talked about up front, right, in terms of why we even have rules, guidelines, policies in the first place, and one of the reasons why kind of sales folks call it go rogue is, right, time is money, right? Like budget that's there today may be gone tomorrow. And so reducing steps in the deal making process is obviously critically important because that helps speed things up, that helps eliminate potentially wasted time. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. And Diane, maybe start with you on this. Like, how do you approach this at Ironclad?
Yeah. As I think about change management, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So take a stock of what it is that you have today, what is working, what's not working. Also, some things is you're thinking about prioritization, you're just not going to be able to fix as like you can't solve all the world's problems. So how do you think about prioritization while also minimizing disruptions and keeping things simple? One of the challenges that I have seen across my experience at different companies is that just because something is hard doesn't mean it has to be complicated. I really want to let that sink in. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it has to be complicated. So as we're thinking about how our sales teams in particular are consuming a process, specifically within your systems, keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. They get paid a base salary, sure, to cover some of the administrative tasks. However, we need them customer facing. So think about where you can automate, think about where you can minimize the disruptions, minimize the touch points, but maximize the value. We also want to think about putting the power into our end users' hands. So again, ops should not ever be a bottleneck. We don't want to do that. In fact, the way that we're going to scale all of our processes is actually empowering our end users so that they can do as much as they can themselves within the guardrails that we've dictated via the policy so that they can get these quotes executed faster. That time to executable order form, incredible. Time kills all deals. So let's make sure that we're not getting in our own way and we're empowering our users to get those quotes out as quickly as possible. We happen to use a CPQ and a CLM here at Ironclad, and it's incredibly powerful. But what I want to make sure people also understand here is that you want to keep your customers at the heart of all of this. If you've got dysfunction in your internal processes, guess what? You're going to ship those dysfunctions out to your customers and not even realize it. So make sure you keep them front and center and you set the right expectations with everybody through that. But Brooke, I'd love to hear from you. How do you think about reducing some of these steps in the deal-making process?
Yeah, and so much of this is all tied with what we already spoke about. But when we think about where to reduce steps when it comes to the deal process, and we'll show an example here shortly, but I have monthly ongoing touch points with our head of deal desk where we talk about what's happened. We have a CLM, of course, we use Ironclad at Ironclad to be able to see, hey, here's all the deals where we had to manually have deal desk interfere because our process doesn't automate it. But maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you just have a Slack channel where it's a central place for people to pop in and ask for support. But being able to then take a pause and say, where are we still not automated? What do we need to build into our process? What happens at a meaningful enough rate that we want this to be built into our standard policy? But really the one thing I would just emphasize that Diane touched on is doing an audit of current state, making sure we understand what reps like about it, doing actually rep interviews, sitting with a rep at a desk if you're in office, or asking to get on a Zoom with them if you're remote and say, walk me through how you get a contract done. Because any assumptions we make put us in a harder position when it comes to truly getting it right. So really going to your internal customers and asking them, what are all the steps you take? Talk to me out loud while you're doing it. I would approach it like I'm a user experience researcher and ask them to talk you through every click that sucks for you. Because what you can then do is really frame that up. V1's not going to be perfect, but if you can say, we reduce these 4 steps you really hate, that's instantly going to get you buy-in with the sales reps, and they're going to start to lean in more and know that you're building not just for policy, but for also end user experience.
I just want to add one thing on top of that, Brooke, that is so key. Operations not only has to turn around and advocate on behalf of the business to the sales organization, but they have to flip it and advocate on behalf of sales to the rest of the business. And so it's really easy to allow your Salesforce instance to become really bloated, to say, oh, well, finance just needed this field, or CS just wanted to check on this thing, so we added another validation rule. And before you know it, you've created a significant amount of technical and operational debt. So continually running these audits, keeping that end user experience in mind is so key. It's actually going to help you avoid some operational debt, some technical debt, while also being able to speak intelligently to both sides of the house. And Brooke, I loved the shadowing advice. You can't put yourself in someone else's shoes until you actually sit down with them. And don't take anything personally. If they say something sucks, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're here to help solve for that.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about, again, the relationship building aspect of it. And like you said, a field here, a validation rule there to you may not seem like a big deal, but if you sit down with someone and you start seeing how that impacts their day to day, even like as they're going through that, be like, wow, that's annoying, or like, wow, that sucks. Right, like that helps you build the rapport, the relationships there. And then also, like you said, you can be an advocate on their behalf on like why you maybe need to start chipping away at some of the stuff that you thought you needed previously, and how there can be a better way. So makes makes a lot of sense. let's talk. We talked about kind of some of the whys around like discounting and kind of policy and stuff at Ironclad, but here I guess we've got like an actual example. So Diane, do you want to kind of get us started on walking through this policy one, how y'all came up with this, the why behind it, and then how you've iterated on it as well?
Yeah. So I will touch on it really briefly, but I want to turn it over to Brooke after I do, because I think her feedback on how this is consumed and leveraged on a daily basis is super, super powerful. So the way that this was pulled together, and shout out to our deal desk, this could not have happened without some deal desk basically herding some cats through all of this as well. But we had to create, in partnership with finance, an understanding of what is a good discount, what's an okay discount, and what's a really crappy looking discount. Because until we can visualize this and put it into context for people, the discounting policy just doesn't make a lot of sense. So creating a visual to allow people to understand how does volume work across these different thresholds is really, really great. But also, we're trying to drink our own champagne here. When we say keep things simple, you'll notice at the bottom with the 2 different deal types and who's approving what, we're trying to keep things really simple and really consistent. And the way that we're taking a look at iterating on this is, because these discounts are being tracked in the system, we can then capture the data and come back on a regular basis and say, you know what, if our chief sales officer is always approving a 50% discount, is that really a policy anymore? I don't know. Let's go back and have a conversation, create that cadence for reviewing and iterating on that. But I'm going to take a pause here and hand this over to Brooke, because she's living and breathing this every single day.
Yes. So the red, yellow, green has been really impactful for us on the sales team. So at the bottom, we obviously anonymized or took out any proprietary information, but these are just examples of how we would think about different discount matrices. We give this to our team, so it's not just built into CPQ. We have this in our internal knowledge base. So we use Seismic at Ironclad. We have a pricing landing page where the thing at the very top is pricing escalations. I want a rep when they're going and they're working in a worksheet to figure out what discount we might do, to know if something is going to hit our chief sales officer Dallas's desk or not, so that they're way ahead of it in terms of what a customer's asking for. And then at the top, we're missing the left-hand column, which is going to say, what are our different deal ranges or volumes? And then what's red, yellow, green? And you'll see there are going to be sometimes discounts that might not go even to an approver, but might not be healthy for the business. So really what we've done with this is try to give guidance and give business justification to the reps to put it in their hands. And what we love about this is it just makes the sales team feel super trusted to make the right business decision with a lot of different information. And to Diane's point, like, sure, sometimes we may always get things approved because by the time they hit CPQ, we've had a conversation. But this sort of documentation, both in terms of like what are our rules and policies and also what is true best practice, leaves a little bit of a sandbox for sales and sales leaders especially to play in. And so what I've seen since we've rolled out the red, yellow, green is a major reduction in discounts. Because if it's just policy based, oftentimes we're not doing it because we don't want to bug someone senior. But by rolling out something like a red, yellow, green, you actually see people wanting to sell a healthy deal that's good for the company and that they can be proud of. So I'd really consider rolling out discount guidance based on health alongside any discounting policies.
Yeah. And how have you all, well, maybe my first question is, one, this matrix as it stands today, is this identical to the V1 or the first iteration that you rolled out? And then two, how have you approached making changes? Because like you said, Diane, is it really a yellow discount approval that 100% of the time is going to get approved by Dallas? Like, does that really mean that like that should be the threshold, right? If like everything that gets sent there is just getting approved, like how have you all thought about changes as you kind of rolled this out initially?
I'll just answer one question that you asked. Is this the first version of what we rolled out? And the answer is a hard no. We have iterated and evolved this so much. But actually, I would love to have Brooke answer that because she's in the trenches here. But I can definitely tell you we've taken a very iterative approach and don't think of these things as set in stone. They are living, breathing documents. So, Brooke, what are your thoughts on how we've evolved this?
Yeah, when we first rolled out CPQ, we actually had a frontline manager level approval that was quite low. And what we did see was exactly what Diane's talking about. No one ever rejected it because for us at Ironclad, frontline managers are almost always working with the reps on the deal and on the workshop to figure out where we want to land it. And so it really was just a vanity approval. So we instantly removed those and we've given them more room to get those deals done without our involvement. And now there is this expectation of if something's going to hit our approval level, we're going to have a live conversation about it. So even if it's a super quick chat, I don't approve anything without talking to the team. So we really did that by having our systems team monitor our approval rates and tell us you have 100% approval rate on frontline. And so we said, okay, great. That means it's vanity and we remove it. And we tend to really look at things both monthly and quarterly. And this kind of takes us really nicely into number 3, which is all about what do you do once you roll something out and it becomes imperfect, either because the policy wasn't perfect or your business changes. And oftentimes it's actually both.
Yeah, and we've built in a lot of time in our system sprints to allow for this sort of adaptation, this evolution, right? Making sure that feedback loop continues to operate. Otherwise, what can happen is we put something out there, and then to Brooke's point, it's a rubber stamp, it's a vanity approval. So what's the point? All we've done by not revisiting is continue to allow the deal to take even longer to be approved. And again, time kills all deals. So we want to make sure that we're moving as quickly as we can with the right guardrails, with the right policies, with the right impact, so that we're hitting on all the right things and continuing to learn and grow. But for other tips in terms of taking an iterative approach, we want to make sure, as we mentioned earlier, that we're pairing policy and process with enablement. I think this is honestly where I've seen a lot of different operations teams trip over themselves. Oh, we've been working on this for weeks. Doesn't everybody just get it? The answer is no. The first time they hear about it is the first time they hear about it. So think about your stakeholders and how they're receiving this information. The filtering and prioritization, Brooke, I've got a question for you, so I'm going to tease this up, but thinking about how sales leaders filter through that. But as operators, we've got to make sure that we prioritize ruthlessly and always. So thinking about a 2x2, what's urgent, what's important, or what's urgent and impactful, that's going to be really, really important. Consider pilots, MVP, experiments, trials, whatever language you want to use. Start small. Set an expectation that we're going to try something and we're going to learn from it, and we're going to continue to improve. And that has to include that feedback loop with both qualitative and quantitative data. Otherwise, we're just sort of in a thrash mode, and we want to make sure that we're not creating extra thrash. And then as operators, we often forget to celebrate our wins. So think about, for example, the frontline manager approval being removed. That saves time. How much time did we save in that deal? Quantify that and share that back out with everybody. Pat yourself on the back and build that trust with your team. But I want to go back to Brooke. As we're thinking about filtering and prioritizing, how do you as a sales leader take the feedback from your team and then filter it on behalf of your operations partner?
Yeah, this is actually, I think, one of the hardest parts of being a sales leader is you're hearing stuff all the time from all directions. And if you're a good sales leader, your team really trusts you. And if you're a good sales leader, other teams look to you as a source of knowledge about the state of the business. So I have my team complains about stuff all the time that I let die on the vine, right? Like this discount policy is silly, or this is so much extra effort. And what I really need from my operations partner in order to only bring stuff to the table that's important is the why. So if we have a specific rule around implementation services, for example, because we're not a services company, if we don't be really thoughtful about how we can sell services, that's going to put us in the red. That's going to keep us from our next $1 million customer getting the support they need. When I understand that and I understand the why behind policies, and my team comes to me and says, I wish I could sell services to XYZ scenario, it gives me the ability to be like, totally hear you. Here's why not. So I really think about impact in both directions. So from my ops team, what's a non-negotiable? Why did we make this call? And vice versa from my sales team. And I think my tip here is when your sales leaders come to you and say, this thing sucks and we should reconsider it, put a little bit of onus on them to measure impact. I think it's really, really important to say, how often does this come up?
Mhm.
What kinds of deals does this matter to? And so I try to be thoughtful, not to just spit out everything I hear, which can be hard in a Slack environment where you want to just pass on feedback all the time. But I really make sure I understand what the impact is of something not being the right policy or the right process before I put it on my operations team's radar. But it's really hard to do. And the best partners enforce some of that healthy friction to put it back on me, because I like to chat, and I do have very friendly relationships with ops. So I'm really quick to ping someone like our sales ops teammate Fraser, just an open thought. And I love when he pauses me and uses his super operational brain to say, is this an emotional reaction, or is this a data-driven reaction and something that we should really stop? And here's the trade-off if we fix this instead of something else. So I would really just tell everyone to feel empowered to like nudge your amazing sales partners back in line, because we can be an emotional breed who has a lot going on at once.
That's
Yeah.
really well said.
Yep. And yeah, so I think a couple of things that that jumped out at me. One, like the quantitative aspect, right? We talked about the discounting policy approvals, right? Like actually measure the approval rate on things to understand, again, whether they're useful, right? And if they are, that means things are getting approved and not approved. Or are they just there just because you think you need them and it's just 100% approval? So one, like get quantitative. And I think that ties to also the win side that you mentioned, Diane, is like, and I think this is probably for all of us, right? Because we have such a long list of things that we need to fix or do. And so we like get something done and then it's like, all right, on to the next dumpster fire. Like, where is it? Right. And you try to fix that. But the reality is like, take a second, like give yourself a pat on the back, like share the victories with your team, and yeah, like you said, quantify them. And again, like I think people always have this natural tendency to be like, oh well, right, like we just rolled out this thing, like, well, how do we quantify it, right? Like I don't actually know, like, is it saving them like 7.5 minutes a day? Is it like, 27.8 minutes a day? Like you don't need to, like, one, you don't need to be there with a stopwatch. Just say like, hey, this thing is, we estimate, is saving one person 1 hour a week. When you multiply that over the course of a year times our sales team, we have saved you X, right? Like that's it. Like you don't need to get incredibly precise, but like do something, right, to measure the impact, because it will it will mean a lot. And yes, celebrate your wins. So one of the other things we had in here on this last tip was around kind of form language. Obviously with Ironclad, you all are kind of experts on the CLM side, but Diane or Brooke, I'll turn it over to whoever wants to take this one.
Yeah, so I'll describe a little bit about how form language ended up in CPQ, but I then we'll turn it over to Brooke so that she can talk a bit about the impact of this. But I just want to say this started with our deal desk saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sick and tired." I'm exaggerating and paraphrasing, so apologies there. Um, but our deal desk was continually getting stuck into trying to evaluate special terms on order forms. And guess what? Our legal teams, they don't want to be involved in these little things. There's a handful of language of these terms that actually can be given back over to the sales organization or even to deal desk to be much more nimble and decide on that case by case scenario. How can we adjust and adapt and include this on our order forms? Glad to hear, Nick, that I'm not exaggerating. I see your response in chat. But the really big important part here is that it wasn't just deal desk saying, oh my gosh, I have to solve this. It actually was incumbent on the systems team to say, this is important on behalf of the business. How do we create space for this? How do we create a CPQ environment, a CLM environment that is nimble enough that we can make this adjustment and turn around and give this back to our salespeople so that they can be much more impactful? We have to make sure that we save space and that we're really thinking about the impact, again, measurement and how do we think about this turnaround time and put it back into the sales team so that they feel more empowered. And again, we're not creating bottlenecks. We're actually deal accelerators, not deal inhibitors. But Brooke, I'd love to hear from you. How has this opened up a lot more empowerment and speed for your organization?
Yeah, so especially when we talk about pilots, Nick, who is our amazing deal desk teammate who's in the chat, does all of his pilots with mid-market. And I like to think it's because we're his favorite. It's also because we have the highest volume. And so what we're able to do is really see what we've goaled ourselves on is how much can we get Nick out of our deals. And so we really think about special terms as what are those little knit moments Nick jumps in to be a hero. We don't actually want Nick playing hero ball in mid-market deals. I want Nick playing hero ball in the biggest deals for our organization. And so by leveraging CPQ alongside Ironclad, which is our CLM, we've been able to basically take into account the 90% of deals that happen and turn it automated to basically eliminate any red lines on standard order forms in the mid-market. And that is something we measure. And that's a measure I would recommend is redlining rates against your order forms. How often can your standard language as is get the deal done? And the thing I would recommend with this is Nick actually records enablement videos of how to go through and use this, how to take a term out if it doesn't work, things like that. So that way the team can actually follow along with him without him coaching them through it. But by leveraging this, our deals have significantly sped up, and also our time to get Nick to helping us on our more complex deals has really gone down because he's only focused on the things that are really high impact.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, great example of one of those things where again, take the feedback that you're getting from your team, understand where you can make improvements, right? Eliminate manual steps from the process, and at the end of the day, save time, right? Which speeds up the cycle. So yeah, one really great example. And I think last few minutes here, just want to do some kind of closing remarks, I guess, from both of you. So Diane, I guess start with you if you want to, one, talk us through, kind of summing all of this stuff up, and then also any, any last thoughts that you want to leave with the crew?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're working with people. And so you want to really think about what kind of healthy tension, how do you define healthy tension, by the way, between yourself and your sales leaders? And use a stakeholder management plan. If you want to look for a framework, Google stakeholder management plan. It's a classic project management tool. You can make it as complex or simple as you need it to be. But create that plan and have that conversation with your stakeholders and say, you can expect this from me. I expect this from you. How do we meet together and make sure that we're thinking through this as a team? Always keep in mind that we want to think about faster turnaround times, closing deals faster with less administrative work. Everyone has literally the same 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. The time is one commodity you will never get back. So how can you maximize this and optimize it on behalf of your stakeholders and also for yourself? You don't want to be stuck trying to retire technical debt or being stuck in the middle and being that bottleneck in that process. So again, make things faster, use that automation where it makes sense, and recognize that with that good customer experience, you're not shipping any dysfunction out. So solve that internal dysfunction and keep that really smooth customer experience in mind, aligned to the customer journey, and put that sales team in a place where they feel empowered to be able to manage that and think less about what's happening internally. Brooke, is there anything that I missed from your perspective?
I think that was great. My biggest tip is just show curiosity, lean in, build relationships that put you in a place to hold people accountable. And then the last thing I'll say is I love talking about this stuff. If you ever want to talk more about this, I know Diane and I are both kind of geeks for all things ops, sales, getting deals done faster. So we're always happy to share our own experience and especially how we use Ironclad at Ironclad, which is just a really big piece of this journey for us, of course, is drinking our own champagne. I won't say eating our own dog food. So always
Thank you.
here as a resource for anything. Just love talking about this stuff, super passionate about it.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you both for dropping a whole lot of kind of knowledge on the crew today. So one, Diane and Brooke are both in kind of RevOps Co-op Slack. You can always continue the conversation with them there. Two, they're both on LinkedIn. You can always hit them up and continue to chat there as well. And then, yeah, if anyone is looking more at kind of CLM, and I always love hearing from like, oh, how do companies like Ironclad use Ironclad, right? Or like how does Zoom use Zoom, right? Like those are such great examples. Like hit them up and they will kind of walk you through it. But with that, we're at top of the hour, so I will let everyone run. Diane and Brooke, thank you very much again for dropping some knowledge and sharing a lot with the crew here. To everyone who's left, don't forget about the post-event survey that'll pop up on your screen after you exit the Zoom. Please fill that out. Give us any feedback that you got so that we can make sure to deliver the best digital events to you in the future. With that, I'll let you all run. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. See you on the flip side.
Thanks
Peace,
for having
everybody.
us.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.